Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you find on any of our platforms. Reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Back in 1997, Patek Philippe launched the 5059 Retrograde Perpetual Calendar Officer's Watch, and it was 36 millimeters. 10 years later, 2007, it launched this watch. This is the 5159J-001, 38 millimeters in diameter in yellow gold. This is the successor to the Retrograde Perpetual Calendar Officer's Watch. Now, the model is 38 millimeters in diameter. It's nice and thin, too. In spite of the Hunter case back, it's still only 11.9 millimeters thick and 46 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throw it on the wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you can see it wears nicely. That said, because of the form of the lugs, these broad, straight lugs, they wear a little bit different. Don't think of this as a 38 millimeter watch. Think of it as more of a 40 millimeter round watch, and you get the sense of how it fits. Now, I've pulled the strap pretty tight here, but you can see that the lugs are not over the edge of my wrist on either side. So take a look down the barrel. I believe you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference, but if your wrist is smaller than that, go with a 5059. The strap is high grade, it's very thick cut, it's rigid, and it will break in over time, but the quality of the leather is redoubtable. Large symmetrical scale alligator leather in a medium brown. It's got a semi-gloss finish. You can see the sheer cut edge showing just how thick these layers of leather are. Monotone stitch, no crimping, no gouging, calfskin on the bottom, a brand new Patek Philippe factory strap. A little bit different from a standard Patek Philippe watch. We don't have the pull tab spring bars here because the officer's convention is to use screws and bars attaching the strap to the case. This costs more than spring bars, but it's also more secure in addition to being historically true. Now, the watch features a full buckle. This is not historically true. Officers' watches didn't have folding clasps in World War I, but this one does, and that's to prevent you from dropping your watch while donning or removing it at bedside. You can see it is friction fit, it snaps shut, and then it has a Calatrava cross, the symbol of the manufacturer externally. Now, we don't have the Calatrava cross here on the crown because this is a vintage style crown evocative of pocket watch gear. We'll talk about why that is. Let's start with the lug profiles. As with a real officer's watch circa World War I, the lugs are fixed to the strap using screws and bars and fixed to the case by means of direct welding. So many cases are stamped or machined. The most expensive way to fabricate a case is to make the case with slots in the side, fabricate the lugs separately, insert the lugs in, fire it all together to weld them together, and then remove evidence of the gathered welded material to facilitate these super sharp breaks between lug and case. Now, the finishing wouldn't have been affected on a vintage officer's watch, but on a modern Patek it is. And what do we mean by officer's watch? Well, there is this entire genre of watches that sprung up during World War I, specifically for officers, but not exclusively. Everyone who needed quick access to time ultimately considered taking a pocket watch and having someone, a technician or an engineer in the field, weld lugs to the case, insert a screw and bar system, and make the pocket watch wrist wearable. So if your uniform didn't have pockets, or you need access to both hands, for example, to don a gas mask or fire a machine gun, you would have the watch now on your wrist where it was readily accessible. No having to grasp for your pocket and find your watch. It was always on the wrist. The consequence, though, is that a lot of these early wristwatches were extremely makeshift, and they retained all of the original characteristics of pocket watches, which is why here we have this unbranded onion-style crown, a very rotund case profile, a dial that looks more a product of the 19th century than the early 20th century, and all of that is intentional. Also, because these were often converted from pocket watches, they retain features like the hinged Hunter casebacks that would allow you to work on or access the movement directly. Now, taking a look at the dial, there's a lot going on. What I like about the yellow gold version of this watch is that the dial is a cream off-white, whereas the rose gold is a little bit brighter silver white. This is a nice sort of damper to the brightness of the yellow gold. It has a balancing influence. There's a sunray motif cut into the center. All of the numerals, both Breguet style, Arabic, and radially arrayed Roman numerals, they are transferred on, so no appliques here, not on a watch referencing the first quarter of the 20th century. They are radially arrayed. We have a watchmaker's 4 on the Roman numerals. You could see those Art Nouveau era Breguet-influenced numerals, because again, the Exposition des Arts Décoratifs did not come out until 1925, post-war. We didn't have Art Deco in World War I and prior to World War I. That's why we have these predecessor fonts being used. You can see that it is an aperture-style perpetual calendar. We've got the day, the leap year phase, and the month, and then a retrograding date at center. We have what might be described as assegai and pair style minute and hour hands respectively. This is a perpetual calendar with a center second, and it doesn't need to be touched until the year 2100, assuming you keep it wound. I'll also note that the hands are all gold, either blackened white gold or yellow gold, and we have that little red index for the date system. Now turn it all over. By the way, the moon phase, once set, is good for 122 years. So the calendar is set until 2100. It deals with leap years, it deals with irregular length months, but the moon phase is of the 122-year adjustment variety. Now taking a look, you can see with the Hunter case back, you get that mirrored case back and solid case back to add class and mass. And then we get a caliber 324 internally. So beautifully finished, automatic winding with unidirectional action and ceramic rotor bearings. It is a anti-magnetic silicon Patek Spiromax hairspring, 6-position adjusted free-sprung Gyromax style balance. All of this pivots on 30 pivot jewels. It has the Patek Philippe seal that is accurate to -3. Plus 2 seconds per 24 hours, and it beats away at 4 hertz. You can see it is nicely decorated with a combination of mirrored bevels. Locating pegs to place the bridges on the base plate feature polished tops. We have engine turning on the reduction wheel adjacent to the rotor on the rotor center. We have it on the base plate as well. We have black polished screw heads with chamfered slots in circumference, circular Côte de Genève on the rotor, linear Côte de Genève on the bridges, and satination on all of the wheels. The bevels, though started mechanically, are beautifully hand-finished and quite attractive. In short, there is a lot to love. And again, automatic winding with a 45-hour power reserve and a perpetual calendar. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. Back in 1997, Patek Philippe launched the Officer's Watch Retrograde Perpetual Calendar reference 5059, and it was 36 millimeters in diameter. In 2007, a decade later, it launched this watch, the 5159, which is 38 millimeters in diameter. And so this is the 5159J in yellow gold. It is a 001 revision. As we know, Patek is 5159J-001, meaning it's the first version of the 5159J.